This is TWiT.
You are probably familiar with the privacy-focused search engine DuckDuckGo. We've talked to founder Gabriel Weinberg before. Now, DuckDuckGo has launched a revamped browser extension and an app, and Gabriel is back to talk about it. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Thank you so much for coming. So what can I expect? Well, this isn't the right question because I know what to expect from the browser extension because, as you know, we've talked about how I've been using it. What can others who haven't had a chance to use it, what can they expect from it?
So as you stated, we've been running the non-tracking DuckDuckGo search engine for the past decade or so, and it's garnered about 16 billion anonymous searches. So we've kind of grown, and we can talk about that. But what we have kind of have a broader vision of protecting people in general across the internet, and we weren't really protecting people beyond the search box. So when you click on the results, you were being then subject to the privacy policies of those other sites. And for a long time, we've wanted to do that, but we were competing directly with Google on search, so it took a while. But now our app and browser extension will protect you beyond the search box. So when you click on those links, we're going to do a few things for you. We're going to block the hidden trackers, mainly from Google and Facebook, but other data brokers too. We're going to ensure that you're on an encrypted connection if possible, so your ISP can't eavesdrop on you. And then we're also trying to expose poor privacy practices where they're known, partnering with terms of service didn't read. And to put that all together, we're grading sites on privacy. So based on all these factors, trackers, encryption, and privacy policy. And in the toolbar of your browser extension, or if you're using the app in the toolbar of the browser, you'll see this A through F grade that you can then click into and see how good the site is on privacy and what we could do to protect you a little better.
So who's doing the grading?
So the grading is us. We are having a transparent algorithm. It's all open source. And right now the grading is pretty simple. If you have a lot of trackers, you go down in the grade. If your trackers are from a major network like Google or Facebook, you get a lower grade. And if you don't have encryption, you get a lower grade. And then finally, if TOSDR, and we're working with them to grade more sites, has graded your privacy policy poor, then you get a lower grade. So it's really those factors at the moment.
TOSDR, Terms of Service Didn't Read. I love that website. It's great.
The only issue with TOSDR, and we love them, is that they haven't graded a lot of sites because it's really complicated to grade these sites because the privacy policies on the internet are unfortunately generally pretty inscrutable to normal people. And so we're trying to do two things here. One is be way up the transparency on privacy policies on the internet, and hopefully encourage some webmasters to make better privacy policies and get them graded by TOSDR. And then two, work with them to grade more sites more quickly. So they're working on redoing their infrastructure, and we're going to be donating to them and trying to help more people work with them to grade more sites.
So you've been at this for a long time, but now it seems like it's sort of a tipping point for regular people being concerned about Facebook and Google. You wrote on CNBC, to make any real progress in advancing data privacy this year, we have to start doing something about Google and Facebook. Not doing so would be like trying to lose weight without changing your diet. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what can we do about Google and Facebook?
Yeah, so to paint a picture there, which I wrote in this op-ed, is kind of people think of data privacy as kind of out of their control and nebulous in the big bad internet. But in reality, these two companies, Google and Facebook, are a large part of the issue. In particular, these hidden trackers we're talking about, Google has hidden trackers now on 76% of websites you visit, and Facebook is on nearly a quarter. So that means that pretty much every site that you visit, it's likely that Google or Facebook is watching you there. And that's like unlike other companies. It falls off very quickly after that. Twitter is at 12%. And so the pernicious part of this is twofold. One is they're profiting off this personal information by enabling hyper-targeted advertising, which kind of at best annoys people as these ads follow around the internet, but at worst is causing major social issues like the election meddling in the US or Brexit, or racial bias that kind of ProPublica has been reporting on. And then also on their own sites, they're putting people in this filter bubble based on the same data where they're showing you links that they think you're going to click on, but in reality, they're putting people in an echo chamber, which is also creating societal polarization. So what I'm arguing to do is block their trackers, which you can use our software or others to do so, as also switch away from their services. So switch away from Google search to DuckDuckGo search, or Gmail to Fastmail or some other alternatives. And for Facebook, it's a little more difficult, but I'm also suggesting that people disengage with Facebook or at least reduce their usage there.
Should we disengage with Instagram and WhatsApp too? Were those still okay?
I think that you should, because as of right now, Facebook is allowed to combine data across all three, and they're getting put into the same profile. I honestly think that if Facebook was regulated, that's what I call in the piece, to restrict their ability to both target and combine data, then it might be less, compelling to disengage with it. But right now, I think that you should.
So it's interesting that you compare it to Diet, because I've long thought using LastPass, a privacy manager, two-factor authentication, those kinds of things are like eating my broccoli. I know I have to do it. I don't want to, and I installed this browser extension, and the search bar the URL bar search goes right to DuckDuckGo. So I use Chrome. I'm used to going to Google. It didn't work like I wanted to. It tasted a little like broccoli, but I know it's good for me, so I've stuck with it. I know that if I keep eating the broccoli, it's going to start tasting better. You made a good point that just because it doesn't work exactly the way Google had been working, it doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just different, and I'll have to get used to it. And it does feel better to know that I'm not just throwing all of this data at a giant company.
Yeah, I mean, we are trying to make it seamless, and our argument is that you can get essentially seamless privacy for the 80/20 on the internet with this app and extension. Now, there's some tricks to doing that. When you block trackers, it can break the web, and we've been very sensitive to that and been trying to reduce that from happening. With the search engine, it's a bit tricky. Our argument is we've been working on search for 10 years, and we've really made it good enough to switch to. But you're right, it does work differently. So you kind of have to be in that mindset to be ready to switch. But we're trying really not to make it a sacrifice. It just is a little different.
Mm-hmm. So explain what hyper-targeting is, and what are some of the scenarios that can result, like the fear of what hyper-targeting can lead to?
Yeah, so there was a great video the other day showing all the different ways that Facebook and Google have information about you. And, a lot of people are thinking now that Google and Facebook are listening to them because the ads are so, on target and creepy. Like you talk to a friend and then you hear the same ad later. And people conclude that they must be listening to you on your phone. But in reality, they're not listening to you. They just have so much data about you that they don't need to listen to you to make that so creepy. And these are data points all across the map. So if you're using, all of Google services and have an Android device, they're tracking your location everywhere you go. Same with Facebook through the app. They're knowing all your contacts, all your email, all your searches, and then they're combining, certainly Facebook is, offline credit card data. So a lot of these things that people find really creepy is they just talk to a friend about what they purchased, and then they see an ad for it. Well, the reality is Facebook and Google know who your friends are, and they know what their purchases are. So they can target ads of that. Now, the hyper-targeting side is they're offering all this information to advertisers. So when you go on to Facebook or Google advertising platforms, you can target your ad very specifically to someone who purchased this product on this day, or who just came to this conference, or a variety of other behavioral targeting activities that people don't realize exist. Now, the problem with that is twofold. One, it's just kind of creepy and manipulative. But the other problem is more pernicious, is that advertisers can then run tests, and they can figure out, run tons of different tests on different behavioral profiles, or on the same behavioral profile, run different ad tests, and they can get the ad manipulative just enough to really convince people surreptitiously to follow the ad. And that's what we've seen in the election meddling. I think that's where it gets really scary.
So what do you say to someone who's like, well, nobody cares what I'm doing. Like, I don't, it's so much easier for me to use Google. I like Facebook. What do you say to people like that who say that?
I say these two harms are more personal than they are revealing your personal data. So I say two things. One is there's always areas of our life that we want to keep private, and you wouldn't want other people finding out, and you don't want people profiting from or going ads against, like your financial and medical issues. That said, if you still don't care about that, there are two personal reasons why you should care. One is the filter bubble problem, where on Facebook and on Google, they're showing you things that you already agree with, and they're putting you in this echo chamber. That's like a distorted reality field where you're not really seeing reality. You're seeing news articles that other people aren't seeing. You're seeing sites that other people aren't seeing. And over time, especially on search, when you're researching topics, that really distorts your view of the world, especially when learning things. And the second is, these ads that you're being subjected to are really manipulating you. You may not realize it, and it may seem free, but you're probably purchasing more products than you would otherwise. They're subliminally influencing you based on these profiles. And I think once people realize that, they actually don't want that.
So when I used DuckDuckGo, when I used the browser extension and I tried to go to YouTube, it told me that it wouldn't they don't let anyone use YouTube without tracking them. So you're going to be tracked, which was interesting to me because having tried to look at my children's YouTube history, I know that they very easily could turn that off. So what that leads me to believe is that they're not giving it to me as their mother, but they're keeping that information. They have that information. If it's true that they're not tracking, they know what videos we're looking at, even if we're like erasing our history.
That is correct. We did several studies where we had people search in incognito mode. This is another pet peeve of mine, is incognito mode doesn't actually protect you for much, but this will illustrate it. At the same time, and we found that there was clear tracking between incognito sessions of what you were doing. And so there is tracking regardless of whether you're signed in or not, in incognito or not, or even if you turn it off or not, it's still happening. And really the only way to block it is to install an extension like ours and literally don't have the request go to them. Or on the regulatory side, if we decide as kind of a country or world to not allow some of this tracking, or if you really opt out, then it forces a real opt out where they can't collect it. That was actually what Do Not Track was supposed to be. That's another setting in the browser that hasn't worked out well. Happy to talk about that more if you like.
Yeah, I would love to talk to you again. Thank you so much. I know we've already taken a lot of your time, but this is fascinating. I do have one more question. Do you have an alternative for YouTube, or do you still use YouTube?
YouTube, unfortunately, and you'll see in what you're talking about in DuckDuckGo on the video search is we'll often have to link to YouTube and then have that warning. Unfortunately, a lot of the video content on the internet is on YouTube, and we can't do anything about that. The alternative that we suggest people use personally is Vimeo, and I use that personally for hosting my own videos and the DuckDuckGo ones. And this is another scenario where Vimeo costs money, and you kind of get what you pay for. They have a nice privacy policy. You can delete your data, all that kind of stuff. But it's paid.